So we can start with the new scene. We can start to create the geometry node, go inside, we can delete the file, we can create the box. The box I can connect with the transform node, and we can change, for example, the translate up, and we can change the scale of our geometry. Now I can create the null object because I want to fix one point in my history, in my scheme, is the point where is the geometry is created, and I call out geometry base, and I change also the color. From this toolbar I can activate the color and change the color, for example with red, or press C from your keyboard for active your color palette here. Why I do this? Because in my 3D view I can see the object, the geometry, and at the top I find immediately my geometry base. This is very comfortable when we work with another kind of system, and then we can see what I mean. Now I need to create one node for create my break, my chunks, my part of destroy. This node is the Voronoi node, so I create tab Voronoi, I find Voronoi fracture points, and Voronoi split. For now we can see the Voronoi fracture. Inside Voronoi fractures I find 3 inputs. One is for geometry to fracturing, one is for point for Voronoi cell, and one is the optional SDF for depth sampling. Now we concentrate only on 2 inputs. The first input is for geometry, so I connect the geometry, so my null geometry base, to my first input. And if I active, I see it's not working. Why is not working? Because I see the red line on my node is alert me is not working. If I press the middle mouse button of mouse, I find that the error is not an OG source specified. So, what I mean? It's not the point for fracturing. So I need to create a point on my geometry for fracturing my geometry. For create this point, I can use the scatter. So, press tab, scatter node, I can connect my scatter node, and I see it's working now. We can come back on the scatter, and you can see here I have the density is generated by density, and how much point is generated. Now is 1000, but I can create 100 is 100, or 500 is 500, okay, on my surface, and this is this, okay, it's more regular. Then we can see also how to destroy this regular system. Now my geometry is created, and now we can start to create the first kind of simulation. If I press play, for example, I don't see nothing is happening. Why? Because I don't have created the solver for my rigid body. In Houdini, we have 3 kinds of rigid body simulation solver. I have the rigid body, I have the bullet solver, and I have the FEM solver. Rigid body is very fast, is based on bullets, and is very good for simulation. Bullet is very accurate, is fast, is good, you can use it without problem. The FEM is finite element material solver is based on the characteristic of my material and is very realistic but is very slow. So I prefer use the bullet system. For creating my simulation now I can create from the shelf. Why I create from the shelf? Because the shelf is very good for create very fast my system, and then I have the scratch. I can use this for create then with the setting my very cool effects. So we can start with very fast. We can go to rigid body object, and I can select my network. My object is jump inside jump up to the object level. I select my node and press enter, and okay, rigid body create and press enter for selection, and see in automatic Houdini create the auto-dop network. There is two ways for create the auto-dop network or the dop network. And what is it, the dop network? The dop network is the network where is find all dynamic situation, dynamic operation. Also in the last version, the new version of Houdini, you can find the dop is also for particles, is also for fluid, is for pyro effects, and another kind of dynamic inside Houdini. It's very nice because if I jump inside, I find the system created for my simulation with my geometry. Is my rigid body geometry with the node of merge. If I need to create another geometry, another rigid body and merge inside, I find my solver, my rigid body solver. And rigid body solver, I see in the parameters, I have the solver engine is bullet, but I can create also the OD or the RBD, okay? This is the bullet, is okay for now for me. And another merge for connect another kind of the effects, for example the particles, for example the pyro, inside here, inside the network. I have another node, is the gravity node, and this is very easy to understand what is do. Is working like the gravity, like the force for attract my geometry go down, and the output node is like object node for create the output of my simulation. I can select now my output node. If I press play on my animation, I see my boxes go down and don't stop on my construction grid. Why? Because my construction plane is not the solid, is only for visualization and is not to break my geometry. So I need to create another node for or another geometry for create the effect of the stopped or the ground. So inside Houdini we have the ground plane. The ground plane is very comfortable because if you create the ground plane, if I press on this icon, I see immediately we create this plane. This plane is very particular because it is infinite plane. You see only the icon here with this arrow in all direction, in this plane direction, is represent is not the plane is finished here, but is continuous in infinite. Also, I can, for example, move it here, and I see the effects of my plane is also active. For example, if I press play, I see my box is finished here and is stopped. and is the part, oops, stop the animation, sorry, come back, create a plane, okay. You can see here my is finished here, okay. Also, if I, for example, move my plane, I can rotate also in this direction, and come back on frame number 1 and press play. I see my plane have an effect in this direction. So I can also move my plane here and have the effect always, okay. Now we can come back, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, okay. But see, we have a little problem with my geometry, because if I press play, it's not break, it's only one block of my piece is not to go around, and wait, I want to go around, okay, in machine. This is because I don't use the correct way for create the fracturing node. Inside Houdini, we can create the fracture rigid body object or the RBD glow object. This is very similar because this create the object is creating more fracturing in is GNO Houdini. Can show the wireframe. Houdini is GNO, this part is different to this part, is different to this, etc. And this is the single element with one pivot point for all elements. So we can come back on our Autodoc network, jump inside, and we can see also, if I press L from keyboard, this is organize my system. Here I have my box of my geometry, and here is my ground plane, and also is the solver, is a static solver. It's the same operation if I click on my ground plane and I click on my static object button here. In automatic, Houdini create the static solver for this. I use the merge node for merge this operation to this operation. If, for example, disconnect my nodes, okay, and connect only my rigid body simulation with the geometry with the fracturing, I see, if I come back, zoom out, for example, if you zoom out, okay, press play, I see my box is go down and go down, okay, and don't have effect of my ground plane. So if I connect my ground plane here and come back, play is stopped. Also we see another aspect very interesting of Houdini. In timeline, I have here the green line. The green line is the cache. Every time I, for example, shake, okay, is no effect, I connect this and this. Every time I create one simulation or change something, my cache is delete. If I press play, Houdini calculate this simulation and cache it. So when I arrive in the last frame, this time I can also change this my timeline. For example, here I can 100. Okay. When I arrive in the end, is start from the front, from the first frame, and is cache. So it's fast, and I see in viewport without problem. This function is very good also for create the system like particles from pyro, etc., all for dynamic system. And sometimes when you, for example, change a little point, for example, I can delete this node, I see my line is orange because it's calculate here, but is needed to change, to recalculate now again. Every time I change in my system, my line is changed the color. When the color is blue, is the cache. Is the cache, it's okay. This is one system you can calculate this cache. But sometimes when you have a more complex situation, the line is can calculate all part, and calculate one part and one part and one part, and you need to calculate the cache to storage with the node, the particular node we can see in the next time. Okay, so we come back on our problem of my geometry is not a break because it's the rigid body situation. So I can delete my geometry, my rigid body geometry, but this is not delete here, but where is going? Is delete? No, because I come back, I am here, and find here I have my geometry. Also see Houdini in automatic create the rest node and the DOP import node. Okay, this is the particular node is for translate our geometry for the DOP for dynamic node. Okay, here also have the little error, but is the warning. Is different to the error we can see before because is the yellow and black line around the icon of node. If I press them with the mouse button, I find no DOP operation, no DOP object names specified. So what I mean is not the object is find for create and for create the simulation. So we can come back here. We can also try to delete this node. Come back here, and we can create the fracturing node. We can select, we can create the RBD packed object or RBD fracture object. Is a few similar, but for now I create the packed object. What is the difference? The difference is the packed object is one big object with inside you have the different pivot points in your pieces. But the fracturing object is the more object is considered everything is a single element, so it's very heavy to calculate this in our simulation. So we can create the RBD packed object. We can select our node and press enter. Okay, we can retry packed object. Press enter, and we can see now I have the rest node, I have the setup packet primitives and the DOP input. Now if I press play in machine, see it's a few slow, but I see it's breaking. So now we can see the difference from the packet object and why I can create another kind of my system. What I mean, inside my object node, here I have the setup package primitives, and here I have my Voronoi fracture. There is some particular option here is very nice to use. What I mean? So the first is visualize the piece. If I click, it can say if I can see also on my part is divided with a random color and understand how is broken my geometry. Also, I can create, for example, in assemble, because this is the assemble node. If I go in another part, I can create assemble, is the same node but with another name. By default, Houdini create this node only for create the packet geometry, but I prefer don't use some option from the fracture. Inside the fracture node, the Voronoi fracture node, I have the attributes. In attributes, I have create name attribute. Every part of my fracturing have one name. I can also see, for example, I can here split my viewport from the top to the bottom, and here I can use this geometry speed sheet, okay, and close my viewport. This is the detailed view of my node I selected, and I can see all little part of my geometry, of my all date of my node I selected. Here I can, for example, show all attributes, and here don't find why, but it's not working anyway. You can find here the name of my piece, for example, piece 1, piece 2, piece 3, etc., etc. I don't want to create the name of attributes, and I want to create here. I have also the create name attributes from inside group and out preface. So I can call fracturing with underscore sometime. Okay. Sometimes it's needed to create another palette, another pane for refraction. Okay. Here I find my name of my piece. Every piece have this name, and if I uncheck and check here, I find the name of my element. Okay, it's the better way is create name by attribute in this node and not in this node, and create the connection from the edge inside and create the packet geometry. Okay, trust me, this is very good way for control your simulation. So it's not to change nothing when you see this, because if you press play, you see your simulation is running like before, but it's changed when you need to work with it in another situation. Okay? I can also create the Autodop network inside the geometry network, inside this network. For example, I can press tab, create the DOP. I have the DOP network here inside, and here is the same of another geometry. There is two ways you can create here, and in the next video we can create this for some aspect, and in another we can create out, because it's very fast to create and control and have the organize very well your situation. Okay, now we can see how to create the variation of piece inside my block, and for do that I use the Voronoi fracture points. So call Voronoi fracture point, and here I have 3 input. One is for the geometry, so I can use the geometry. One is the impact points, and one is the additional, is optional SDF for depth sampling, with this in another video. The impact points, for now I can use the scatter points for see what's happened. And when I connect this node of the scatter in this input, I see my impact point is very big area. This is my impact point. Impact point is have a more big radius. Can I go down? Okay. And here I have the point per area I can create. What I mean? Okay. Here, for example, I can 20. I see every impact point. Every impact point have 20 points created. And now we can't see, but some points are the different color from red to yellow, and because it's red is more impact and yellow is not very impact. And I can connect this point to here, but if I point if I connect this and do that, so I can make more room. Okay, I see now I have the different situation, but I can control this on my box. I want to control, I want to create some area with a different part, and another is very big area with the big pieces. For do that, I need to create one range of area with, for example, the color. So we come back, we can shake this node. Okay, I can take this node and up here. This is the before situation, and I can create the paint node. Paint node is the system for create for example the area with the range, the mask area is like a brush. Okay, I have the brush, you can see in the viewport. I can use the color, the foreground color and the background color. The background color in this situation, okay, I apply on my box is apply to all is black. Okay, then I apply the color, but the color I prefer apply the red color for the area where is the my more black or of it. Also, I can choose the mode for merge my effect, for example, for replace, for add, for subtract, and etc. Because I can, for example, use also the paint node for create the variation of the scale, for example, in some situation of my geometry in my on my surface. But this is another situation. Now, if I try to paint, I can paint, but here I have very large. I don't have the more points. If you see, my point is it's 4, and this paint work on the vertex. So I can come back on my box. I can give the polygon mesh, and I can have more subdivision from axis. 1 for it's okay for the okay. Now I have more points in my area, and you can see the power of proceduralism is this. You can go up and down and you can change your situation. Now you can see it's change more the situation. Now it's similar, okay? But I can come back here, and if I start to paint, I can apply all the black or to all points, and I see it's only on some part, okay? Only on some points. I can start to paint. Also, I can, in the brush, set, for example, the radius, change the radius, or with the scroll of my mouse, I can change the radius. I have the radio pressure, radio angle, brush, and opacity, etc., etc., etc. Can I change it? But for now, I prefer use only the radius of my brush. Can apply all, and you can come back here and paint this part. Okay, and I can do the same down. Hide the construction plane. Okay, physics, for example, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, now I can hide the points. I can connect my geometry to fracture point, and my point, I need to create another scatter, connect the scatter, and this scatter now it's all on around. If I can change the display, you can see the display, the point of is black and red, but I want only on red. So now in by density, I have the density attribute. I can delete density and assign the color. Now it's only on the color, okay? If you want, also you can change the number of points. For example, you can give more, or for now it's good. I can change the relax iteration, or the max relax radius. For now it's okay. Now I can connect to my Voronoi fracture, and voila, I have now the different situation where is the point is the area of my point is this. So I can use the merge node because I want this effect and this effect is together. I have the message of warning, but it's not a problem, and connect here. And now if I can go to see, I have some part where is the color. Okay, template. Don't see. Anyway, I have the part with the Voronoi fracture points. This part is very dense and there is very small pieces. Okay, and the big part where is the effect of my scatter point. If you want, you can continuous, and you can, for example, apply another scatter point and with another paint. Can connect this right here and apply all, give a red, and you can paint more here and more here. You can assign density, active the density by color. Give more, not relaxed, give more points. Okay, and we can create another fracture point. Also, no, it's okay. Point density, for example, we can change. Try to change forever. Difference effect. Exterior, interior 0.5. We can give 5. Effect. No, we can use 1 and 1 only for example visualization points. Okay. Now, if I merge also this here, you can see the effect is very different. I have another part with more dense effect. Also, I can take this and visualize pieces. Okay, now we can see it's very various. And now, if I don't want the template, remember to save some time, because this operation is very huge, and sometimes Houdini can go to crash if you work with old machine, or do you want to come back? It's more important to save. Okay, and now we can see what's happened. I have okay, I have a more variation in the fracturing. Okay, but we have a big problem. The big problem is this element is start when I press play on my timeline, and I don't want this happen. I want started when I want, when for example I have the geometry, another geometry is running, or for example I want to add the timer at this this simulation. We can do in different way. One way is change, for example, the time of a simulation. If I select my DOP import, I can go in jump to with this button. I can jump in the AutoDOP network. It's the same way. In this case, I go back in the object level and jump in AutoDOP network. I see here start frame of my simulation is 1. if I put, for example, 12, my simulation starts to frame 12. Okay, this is one method for active the simulation in another frame difference by 1. Another, it's use the object for create the activation system. I prefer use the geometry for activation this element. And how we can do that? We can see now we can stop the simulation. Okay, reset simulation. Sometimes it's good to reset the simulation. And now we can see how to create this effect for activation this element. But before I need to create a little windows where I show you how to work with some element. Okay, and for disabilitate this simulation, I can go and jump here and we can create another node, for example the node, and we can select this. Okay, in this way I see my simulation don't work. Okay, it's very comfortable for create this situation. Okay, we can jump back. I can create another node, I can call it geometry. Inside I create the frame, the grid. Okay, and now we can see how to use the attribute transferred for transfer one information to other element. We have the grid here, and I create also the sphere here. Every time I create the element, this element or items have some properties, some particular properties called attribute. If I press the middle mouse and see the attribute, for example, is 1 point, attribute is P. P is position attribute. Okay, is the point attribute. Also here, I can create, for example, the particular attribute color. I can create a node called color. I can change the color to, for example, blue. And here I see it's blue. And I see in the middle mouse I have a 2 point attribute. My point have the CD is color attribute and the point attribute, the position attribute. I can create attribute. And here I have attribute create attribute. Create attribute is very comfortable because I can give the name, for example, my attribute test. And I can say is the class is the point, is the type is float, for now it's okay, or integer, or vector, or another, float it's okay, the size, the default, and the value. Value 1 is true, 0 is false. But more important, if I press, I find now 3 point attribute, CD, position, and my attribute. If I add, for example, the null object, you can see here I have always 3 points attribute. I don't have any variation because the null object is the node without effect on attribute. We can come back, we can go in our geometry, and we can see here, for example, we have 1 point attributes is 1 point attributes, And here we have 2-point attribute, etc., etc. I can find more different attribute. Anyway, come back here, and now I want, for example, change some information from this to this, some information of the attribute. I can delete this. I can, for example, have another color attribute, and in my color attribute I can put, for example, yellow. Okay, I have the yellow and the blue. Okay, I want to pass this attribute to this. I can use the attribute transferred. Attribute transferred have two input. The input, the geometry to transfer the attribute, and the geometry to transfer the attribute from. You can connect the geometry and another geometry. We can see what's happening. Okay, now I pass from the grid is blue, I pass the yellow, so I can connect this. Okay, this is correct. Okay, see what the attribute I want pass. I have the points attribute because it's the point attributes, and I can choose, for example, the color. In the condition, I can use the range for pass this by distance, okay, the distance, and the blend. The blend is similar the feeder in one mask, and this is very nice because I have the sphere, and here when I pass my sphere is transferred this value. If I move, for example, my sphere, I can use, for example, the node of transform. Okay, it's better. I see my attribute is changed. Also, I can animate this value. For example, I can go here, press left mouse button, and on mesh channel and keyframe, set keyframe from the one. I can move here, for example, and I move my sphere. Move my sphere here, okay, and left mouse button, commit change. Now we can see if I press play, I transferred my yellow to my blue plane. Okay, also I can left mouse channel scope parameter. Scope parameter is the curve editor, and here I can change, for example, the animation with the line. My animation is uniform. Okay, but this is, you can see in the next. More interesting, it's the promote parameters. The promote, what is it, the promote? Promote attribute. Promote attribute is the system for create the range, for example. Here, my point is not yellow, is the little variation of yellow from the pure yellow to blue, is the scale of yellow. You can choose if you can give more yellow or not. You can connect here, here, and see the point. You can use the color, the point, and use the promotion method. Promotion method maximum take the maximum value here and bring to 1. If the maximum value here is 0, is 0. You can see what's happened. And you can choose the class, for example, the class original name, we can not use the original name, the class of primitives, for example. So is a pass from points to primitives. And I can use another attribute, promote, and we can use the primitive to point. I use the maximum also in this case for markable more this variation. And when you do this, you can do this for create more intense part for our situation. But anyway, we can also don't use. Another way for transfer the attribute is use the solver, the particular solver in Houdini called solver. Inside the solver, I can connect one and show input. And inside, if I jump inside, I find the previous frame, the input number 1, the input number 2. The input number 1 is the grid, the input number 2 is the sphere. So I can create the attribute transferred. Can connect my attribute transfer, choose the color, and come back, choose that, and you can see in condition what's up. Okay, don't work sub level. Okay, can change, for example, the distance to 2. Come back up, you can see the effect. Okay. The same way we can use for create, for example, the activation point. The activation point is very similar. We can go to our geometry and we can create in the middle before the DOP. Before the DOP, we can create the attribute and we can call this attribute active, like activation. Set by point, because here I have the points, and inside the points I have the value from 0 not active, 1 is active. Default value is 0 and value is 0. It's okay. Now I can create here another attribute create, and more important integer, so it's one natural point. It's not 1.2, 1.3, is integer, also called active integer, and value is 1. Okay, but now I need the element, the geometry for active this point. So we can come back here, can create, for example, the sphere. Can create the transform. Up here, and also I can scale it down. Okay, I can connect with active. So now I have a 2-point attribute position active, and here I have 3-point position active and name because I apply the name here is fracturing. And now I can create the solver. I connect my solver, I can drag up. Okay, and inside the attribute transferred, create, connect the previous frame with our situation. We can create the active, and for now distance we can say 2, okay, or 1, it's okay for now. Okay, now if I go here, come back on my Outlook network, come back, turn on output, come back on geometry. Now if I press play, it's nothing happened because my sphere is don't move. Okay, is here, my sphere is not moving, so is not active my pieces. So I can set the translate. Oops. Okay, I can create set key, maybe. Okay. Come back. Set keyframe 24 to 60. I can move here and commit the change. And now scope position, okay. Yeah, it's moving. Okay, there is here this point I can delete this point. Now it's moving. Also I can create a nice animation. Okay, now it's moving. And now if I start my simulation, don't work. Okay, don't work because I need in my simulation to my geometry to check the override attribute. Okay, override attribute. In this way I can use the deformation from the SOP, and Houdini understand is working this, and we can see how to work now. Okay, perfect. This way is very good for me for create simulation of some part when you can destroy. You can also use more geometry for destroy element for create this effect. Okay, you can see is break, and this is passive, is not very work this part. Another way for create the area where is my simulation is working, because now here I have more part is not work. Okay, is passive, is stopped, but you can create also. Can come back here and you can create, for example, the fracture or the paint. You can create another Voronoi fracture point, and we can connect here and create the scatter. And in the scatter I can apply, for example, 2. This is 2 part or 3 part where is fracture your object. Okay, so if you want to create only this part, is break this part, you can create with the fracture, and then you can create the delete SOP, where you in here, for example, attribute pieces. Okay, you can choose delete selected, so piece number 0. Okay, and I can create another delete and delete also this delete section, and here delete not selected. Okay, here I have this part. This part is my active fracture, and this is I call passive fracture. Now I can, for example, have and here I can start with this system, so I can create another part is breakable with this system we can use here very fast. We can use only, for example, Voronoi fracture, scatter, And another good way for when you use the scatter is use the ISO or VDB. What I mean, the ISO offset is the system for create the volume. Okay, the volume we can pass to background to dark so we can see better. We can create the volume where is more fast for create the scatter point. Okay. And here you can see, okay, is fracturing. Now this is my part for where is break my geometry. Okay. And this is my passive part, is not working, is static. Okay, and this is one way for create the section for don't have all simulation, all part of simulation. Another way is use the cookie for cut some part. For example, I can create another box or sphere. I can add the transform. I choose this, my sphere is a polygon 8 and apply the mountain. Okay, but maybe okay, can do that. I prefer. And I can scale this up. Now I can create the cookie shop. Okay, I can say minus B. Okay, this part is the part where is create the fracture. Okay, and also we can see if I can. Okay, another cookie. Okay. So we can here it's my passive and here my active. You can use the merge node. Can also use the color. Okay, and then I can create the fracture from this. So this is it's not important. But the point is you can create more various system for create the fracture area. Okay, but is more good when you can, and also can fix it. For fix it maybe is better is I use the ISO software node here, and no, it's only here because I have the fracture, and then for example port 25. Okay, I have the difference way for create the fracture on my geometry, but the good way for create fractures is this with my geometry, the ISO, the scatter. If you want, you can paint some part. We can use the color for scatter point, the Voronoi fracture point, and then the fracture. Okay, come back. Then the fracture, Voronoi fracture. In the Voronoi fracture is good if you want to see the pieces or not, is not important. Create inside surface, create inside edge. In attribute, uncheck the create name attribute, and then in the assemble, if you want, add also before, but in assemble, create name attribute, assign the attribute, create connection inside edge, and create the packed geometry if you need the geometry, packed geometry. Okay, now I want to show you how to break the object in another way. Is automatic breaking. I don't like it because you can control your break, your fracture, but I want to show you by the way. Also, I create the rapid simulation with the box. Create my geometry here, and create the RBD object. In automatic, create the Autodop network. I create also the ground plane here, and I can connect this in the merge node. From the rigid body I select a bullet, and here I switch. Now here I can select my object. If I press play, I have this simulation. Okay, I select my box, my rigid body, and I create the make breakable. If I select and press enter, okay, I see. Now if I press play, my object is started to break. Okay, this breaking is when is collide on the ground, it start to break, and you can assign, for example, more break level. You can also change the maximum impact and the minimum impact. You can change the point. You can change the kind of fracturing, but more important, you can see here. It's break, it's break, it's break. It's the level of breaking, the fracturing, and it is continuous to break in the time. But it's not more good because you can have a more control on this break, but you can only set in it, and the control is very limited for my point of view. So it's the best way is to create the geometry and create the scatter and study how to breaking your geometry, and after you can create the simulation.